special partnership and brought to you by Future Leader Now. Today on Soulfront, we have Saher Ghattas, who is the Chief Revenue Officer and co-founder for Flawless Inbound. His passion is in sales and in marketing. He has an extensive background, over 20 years in this space. He's worked with multi-million-dollar companies that are in manufacturing, technology, engineering, financial services, telecommunications, all over the board. And he's able to tell us, what's changing in this field and why it's important for companies and also the people who work for these companies. I'm really excited to bring you this show, and let's get into it. Saher, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for joining us today. We're going to explore an interest of yours, something that you care about a lot, which is sales and marketing in growth-based companies. Now, way back in 2014, when you started with Flawless Inbound and became the CEO and you've grown the company, you mentioned that in growth companies, the largest gap that you recognized was in sales and in marketing. Now, people would almost, understand that in a way because there's so much change in technology, there's so many moving parts, there's changes in social media. I want to go into that a lot today, but what I'd also like to do is just explore your journey from 2014 to present day with Flawless Inbound. And if you could just explain how your understanding of sales and marketing has changed over time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. First of all, Scott, thank you so much for having me on the show. I appreciate everything you're doing to the community. Soulfront is amazing. I'm part of the Soulfront community, and I'm seeing you add value each day to the community. I really appreciate that. So thank you for having me on your show today. Okay. So me and Flawless Inbound started in 2014. Before Flawless Inbound, I was working in a big Inc. 100 company, and I was kind of managing a big sales and marketing team in Western Canada. And while I was working in this company before starting Flawless Inbound, I started noticing some common patterns. And those common patterns, I'm talking about like late 2013, early 2014. And those patterns were that business is growing because of organic growth, because of referral, word of mouth, which is absolutely the right thing to do for your company, right? You're doing the right thing for your clients, you're doing the right thing for your team, then eventually you are growing yourself, your organization, your team, and your community. But the problem is, then you stop there, you plateau. And the challenge is that now we are very connected because of the internet of things, mobile devices. We now become a global economy, as you know. So this means that competition can step in your market overnight, and they can actually disrupt your market. So as a business leader, or as somebody who cares about the company you work for, or you care about the team that you support each and every day, it's very important to focus on the livelihood of your organization, because the livelihood of your organization help to maintain the livelihood of your team and employees, which then maintain the livelihood of their family, which then feeds the livelihood of your community. So to me, everything is connected. So the challenge with that is you need to start thinking differently about how to manage sales and marketing, knowing that you can be disrupted overnight, or in few months, maybe half of your book of business can disappear. So that was kind of an aha moment for me to think differently about how can we do sales and marketing in a different way. This is kind of how we really started in 2014 with Flawless Inbound. Does that make sense?
It does. Now, with the idea of this gap, and when a company is growing, where does the company start seeing this gap happen, and why does it occur?
Thank you. So I believe that any leader, usually he's either the main source of innovation or the main source of blockage or gap. So I would say that the gap, usually I find it started from the leadership team. If they're not open to new ideas, then eventually these new ideas will never find light within the organization. Now, to be very specific, usually this gap is sales and marketing leaders or business leaders, maybe they are comfortable using playbooks in sales and marketing that was successful a few years ago, 5 years ago, 7 or 10 years ago. The gap that I have seen is that if you're always relying on obsolete process systems and playbook, you will get obsolete results. So somehow you need to pivot out of those playbooks and gaps into understanding how to tap into new streams or channels of marketing and sales process that are more modern and actually match what your client is looking for, not what you are trying to sell and position to your client. Mm-hmm. That was the big gap that I have seen is kind of shifting and changing. Mm-hmm. The market is shifting and changing. Your persona or your client needs something different, or they need to hear it differently, but still your company is positioning exactly the same message, the same way of selling that they have been doing for the last 5 years. That's a big gap. So as a leader, you need to monitor that for sure.
Now, one thing that's talked about right now is when things are slowing down, you need to start looking at, what you need to stop doing and what you need to start doing. Now, I have a quote here that relates to marketing. It's from Forbes, and it says, when times are good, you should advertise. When times are bad, you must advertise. Mm-hmm. And I went into that article a bit, but can you talk about it from your perspective, like why that might be true?
Absolutely. And I want to add to that, actually. I'll spin it differently. There are two kinds of pain that you choose to deal with. It's the pain of discipline or the pain of regret, if I can put it this way. So I think what I'm trying to say is marketing and sales enablement, it's an engine, and you always have to invest in it regardless of the market condition. To me, that I can say that can be the pain of discipline, right? Now, during bad times, usually 90% of companies, what they usually do, they will start shrinking some budgets. It can be maybe hiring, it can be marketing and things like that. And maybe they're doing it for the right reason, but sadly, those are short-term focused decision-making, not long-term. See, when the times are hard and tough, usually it's only organizations who are visionary, who look to the next 24 months, what market we need to capture and those kind of things. Usually those organizations invest double their amount of focus, resources, money, people on marketing and sales enablement and branding, so that when the market kicks back, the clients will remember them and will never, ever remember their competition. Mm-hmm. And those are usually organizations that survive and thrive during good times and during bad times. So think about Amazon, think about Uber, think about Tesla, think about Airbnb, which is maybe struggling right now. But if they continue with their messaging, they still will be the winning organization, the winning brand after 12 months from now or 24 months from now.
Yeah, the one thing that I also picked up in that article was the idea of brand or product repositioning. Like it's an ideal time to think about that and how you'll fit into that next environment. And the noise is down, right? So correct. In terms of marketing, there are less marketing dollars out there. So you can position yourself and people will start hearing it. So is there also some truth to that?
Absolutely. The way in Flawless and Bound, how we do marketing is we actually try to hold the stick from the middle, right? So we don't do the traditional advertisements only, because that will be more as if you're kind of shouting out and say, guys, come and watch what Flawless and Bound is doing and stuff like that. So what we're doing is a little bit we're changing and adjusting a little bit the playbook, and we're advising all our clients to do the same. So I'll give you a scenario, right? So now we're not saying, hey, Flawless and Bound, we are the organization that can help you grow your company. Please hire us. That's not what we do. We're actually hosting webinars on monthly basis where we are sharing with business leaders exactly how we are helping other business leaders grow sales and marketing. And I'm glad we're having this interview today. Yesterday, actually, we hosted a webinar. There were 65 people attending our webinar for a full 90 minutes, coming from 45 different B2B organizations in US and Canada. This is the time where all other agency or other kind of consulting companies are more shrinking, their practice. We're actually kind of going deeper and saying, no, actually, we want to share how we're helping companies. We are literally putting our playbooks online. We want everybody to benefit from. And of course, long term, we know that it's a good karma. People will remember us and will remember that, you know what, I learned this tactic from Flawless and Bound. If I'm growing again, I want to speak to those guys because they were honest to me during bad times, and I'll trust them during good times. So that's kind of a way exactly proving what you're saying, Scott, which is maybe when other companies don't have budget to do traditional digital marketing, maybe your company should be actually more vocal, more online, tell the story better, but know exactly what kind of story you want to say to what persona and what's your ideal customer profile. And that's kind of how you can map the model into it.
Now, when people think about, traditional sales, traditional marketing, selling a product, putting something on a billboard, and that's not what you do. It's very different than that. And you use terms like sales enablement, marketing enablement, service enablement. Can you go into those ideas and just try to make them understandable in just real simple terms, just so people can understand a process for inbound marketing from start to finish?
Absolutely. Thank you. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give a real life scenario as if let's say you want to go and buy a car. How about that, right? So think about, let's say me or Scott, you want to go and buy a car. Think about how you usually do it 6 years ago, 10 years ago, versus how you do it now. Okay, so let's say 6 years ago or 10 years ago, you say, you know what, I'm actually going to go and drive to different car dealership. And I actually don't know the specs because 6 or 10 years ago, internet at that time didn't have all the information really online. So I will rely 100% on the knowledge of the car sales representative, because he really knows the spec of the car. I'm going to have full attention. I will sit down in his office and he will sell to me the feature function, why this car is good for me and all this other things. And then I'm going to go and drive and kind of shop around until I find the right car for me, the right price for me, and then see how it will go from there. So that's kind of the sales process that was 10 years ago. Now, from a service process 10 years ago, usually you know exactly when you want to do an oil change, you go and you speak to completely a different department to do oil change or maintenance. And maybe sometimes this department maybe knows exactly how you bought the car, maybe they don't, all those kind of things. So that was 6 to 10 years ago. Now let's fast forward, let's travel to the future, to right now. Right now, technically, you can look to 500 different car dealership online on a mobile device. You actually don't speak to any sales rep. Actually, right now, as a buyer, you're more empowered to know everything about the feature, function, pricing, discounts, and delivery time of the car that you want, even before the dealership know about it, because you can deal directly with the manufacturer. So now the question is, as a car dealership, I'm just giving you a simple scenario here, are you ready to add value to the buyer who's already having more information than your sales rep, and show them value day one in the buying process, even though they might never ever come and walk into your office to do the transaction, they will do it online. So how can you differentiate yourself as a car dealership versus 10 years ago? Especially that the buyer will only give you a 10-second chance, because they will look at your website, they will see can you add value to them or not. We can argue that the example I gave was purely business to consumer versus business to business, because business to business is more like a little bit of a longer sales cycle, a little more of a sophisticated multi-touch point with the buyer.
Mm-hmm.
So this is kind of the value that we add to an organization. We go and visit their sales process and their marketing process, and then compare it to what really should happen right now so they can attract the right client to their business. And then evaluate other competition and what they're doing actually online. And that's not just the website, it's the messaging. It's the multi-touch points. What kind of articles or white paper would a customer look at to compare your organization to your competition? Are you hitting on the right point? Are you truly adding value from a marketing perspective? Are you spending your marketing dollar just by pumping money in Google ads and Facebook ads and it's not converting? Or are you actually adding value and maybe hosting webinars to educate your buyer on how you can help them so they build the trust? And then that's purely marketing. And then sales. Would your sales team deal with a lead that came from your website the same way as they deal with a lead that walks into their office the same way, or would they deal with it differently? See, if somebody came to the office, maybe they don't know yet everything about your organization. But if somebody's coming online, maybe they know already everything about your organization. They want to ask one or two questions to make a final decision. So if I have a traditional sales rep dealing with an online lead, and he's still wasting the lead's time by positioning the background and the history of the organization and why we're better, you will lose this transaction 100% because you're going to kind of annoy the lead versus somebody who's coming to the office. Does that make sense? Let's imagine now the transaction is done and you won the contract. How is your services department now dealing with your client that you just won? Do they have access to all the information of how this client came to you and what exactly was the pain point and how they can add value to this client? Or are they going to ask the same question again? Would the marketing team market the right message to existing customers versus prospects? So those are things that we actually help organizations with. And we define this more as the flywheel. So think about the flywheel as the customer is in the center. And there are three divisions that always make sure that they're adding value to this customer: the sales division, the marketing division, and the services division. Are they in sync together? Are they collaborating together? Does the three division have the same viewpoint on the client, or each one is having a different viewpoint and they're not collaborating? So that's in a very simplistic form, kind of how usually we empower organizations to grow and add more value to their customer.
Do you find that when a customer begins with you, there's a sense of it's overwhelming almost, all the things that they need to piece together to do a start to finish transaction? And how do you help them feel comfortable with the process?
So it really depends on how mature is the organization we're working with, because we work with different levels of organizations. There are organizations that they have already a great sales and marketing playbooks, and maybe all they need is just optimization and then connecting the divisions properly together. So that's kind of one level of organization work with. The other level of organization, maybe organizations that have been doing an amazing job, but more in the traditional manner, which is they grow by referral, word of mouth, and traditional sales process. So with those kind of organizations, we need to kind of build a different foundation and then transition the organization and train their team to go to this model. We have a level 3 of an organization where they're growing rapidly, but somehow they are having challenge converting leads to real deals and close business. So then we go in and we troubleshoot why this is happening and we start fixing it for them. So it really depends on the maturity level of an organization, on how they deal with those kind of different divisions. And that's why we have different onboarding process depending on the maturity level of the organization. Usually our onboarding process takes from a month to a month and a half to really understand the organization, build the process properly, then start the execution from there. Of course, we do a lot and the organization does a lot. It's a collaboration between us and them. So it can be a little bit overwhelming in the beginning. That's why change management and the culture of organization would be a key factor in the success in this journey together.
With your growing Flawless Inbound, you've brought on different relationships, and I know that you're proud that Hubspot is a partner that you started with in 2015, and then you became over the years a platinum member, which is significant. And even more recently, I think that you've deepened the relationship. Now, Brian Halligan has an interesting quote, and he's the CEO of HubSpot, and I'm just going to read it out here. And he says, "What separates good content from great content is the willingness to take risks and push the envelope." So, what I'd like to kind of go into now, just going a little bit deeper even, is can you talk about HubSpot and what they do and what that partnership has been able to do for your organization and how you help customers?
Absolutely. So I'll give you a quick high-level overview about HubSpot for people who doesn't know HubSpot. So think about HubSpot as this kind of platform that have three pillars included in one single platform, right? Maybe you want an email marketing engine. So everybody knows maybe MailChimp. So MailChimp is great in doing that, right? Maybe you need to do social media management. So think about maybe Facebook tools like Crowdbuffer, Hootsuite, software tools that can help you push the message out on LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, and so on, Instagram, and so on. And then think about another platform where you can manage your customer relationship, a CRM platform, like Microsoft Dynamics or Salesforce or Pipedrive or Sugar CRM and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. HubSpot came in, hey, 1 minute. To be able to grow the organization, you're dealing with like 4, 5, 6, 10 different softwares. How can you deal with this software and then still focus on running your business? Oh, and by the way, you need to be expert in each and every component of this software. And to make those softwares connect together, it's an extra cost. And you have to write some extra code to get a report to see exactly the buyer journey how it came. So HubSpot said, okay, how about we try to fix this problem? So now, 15 years, they now have a single platform that can almost do everything that was shared now to be able to do it in a single platform. So the marketing is all inside of HubSpot. The sales and the CRM and the pipeline, business forecasting, it's all inside of HubSpot. Ticketing system, you have an existing customer who wants to now open a ticket because they want to troubleshoot something of a product and service you sold them before. It's inside the HubSpot platform. Reporting, social media management, hosting the website even, it's all inside the HubSpot platform. So just the concept of consolidation was a very powerful strategy that they came in with for B2B organization to be able to grow fast and better. Another thing is, of course, ease of use. So you can literally use this platform, plug and play in a month. You can have all those systems up and running in your organization without the traditional way of hiring a consultant, building a process. And the consultants are doing an amazing job, but it, of course, takes time to do that. And then the consultant gives them a roadmap. But then as a business owner, you take the roadmap and now you need to find a technology that can fulfill that roadmap. So HubSpot was able to combine all of that together and kind of bootstrap or transition organization in a shorter time, and more importantly, in a cost-efficient way to be able to capture and achieve growth when the times are right. That's the beauty of HubSpot in a nutshell. And then Brian Halligan and his team did an amazing job of taking this company from an ideation to now a gigantic public traded company. They have offices everywhere, almost 150 locations. They bootstrapped from Boston. Now they have offices everywhere in Europe. They have in Dublin, Ireland, in Singapore, in Japan, Australia. they're international organization, and we were blessed to be one of the leading partners for them in Canada and the US.
So and it's exciting. Like I like the idea that you are able to make that connection. And I mean, one part of business is basically trying to ensure that the companies are successful. But with the clients that you've dealt with over the years in trying to help them with their sales and marketing, where have the big wins been for you?
I think so. I'm personally passionate about growth, either if it's personal growth or business growth or adding value to clients and things like that. I think one of the big wins we see is we count our wins by measuring how our clients are growing. So literally, we ring the bell in our office when we are seeing our clients not only having more traffic coming to the website, because sometimes traffic coming to the website is not really meaningful because maybe it's bad traffic or not your clients. And we don't ring the bell when somebody fill a form on your website, because still that doesn't mean that that's the right client for you. But we actually start ringing the bell when we find that a lead came in, your sales team actually used our process, and they were able to add value to that lead, and the lead now is signing a contract with it. Mm-hmm. To me, that's an aha moment, because that's a real proof that the flawless inbound playbook was able to be adjusted and optimized and added to completely a different company, and they see value and they're actually growing. And why I'm very personally passionate about that, because I know that the dollar that we're creating for this other organization is eventually supporting their vision, which means that it's supporting their team members, which means that there are 4 more families being supported right now in the condition we're in, which means now they can invest in the community that they live in. So to me, I can see it as a closed circle, Scott. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of part of, we have a culture code. So part of our culture code is transformation. So now we can actually map what does really transformation mean on the ground. We can actually measure that. So it's always an exciting moment for us when we see actually organizations are achieving that using our playbook.
And that's one thing that I've found year over year is with marketing, which is been a social science, has kind of moved into a place where you can measure, you can find out exactly what the actions and the outputs are, and feel good that you made a difference, rather than just throwing advertising dollars and saying maybe it worked. Being able to make that connection, I think it's a great thing, because you know how you move the needle. We'd like to finish today with this last question. It's less of a question than if you can finish this thought that I'm going to read out. And there's something about sales and marketing in recessionary times.
And I'll finish that right now, like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay, let me try this. So there is something about sales and marketing right now in this recessionary time that it should be the brave moment of how those 2 leaders or those 2 departments truly collaborate together and work on one page and one playbook to focus on one thing, a true ROI for the organization, which eventually can be measured on a CEO level or a board of director level to bring value to everybody working on this organization and supporting this organization.
That's great.
And I'll stop here.
Well, that's wonderful. Saher, thank you so much for your time today and taking time to be a part of the show. I really appreciate it, and I wish you all the best through these tough times.
Thank you so much, Scott, and thank you for the amazing thing you're doing for Soulfront. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for your support. Please remember to click subscribe so we can bring you more remarkable interviews with extraordinary leaders.